Hey there, Board Game Maniacs, and thank you for joining me in for another episode of Painting with the Maniac. If you've been following along this build video from the first, you know what we're working on is one of the very large trees for the game Star Wars Legion by Fantasy Flight Game. And this is like a tree from the Forest Moon of Endor. Again, if you've been following along, you've seen how we sculpted it and we molded it. Size comparison for the miniatures. And the next part we're on now is we're going to fill it before we pull it out and actually paint it to get it up onto the gaming table. This probably will be the last video for this three-part mini-series. When I say last video, because this is the third video for it. Hopefully this will be the last. If not, it could be just one more, but I'm thinking we should finish it all off onto this one here. Where we left off last time was we poured the latex in, we let it sit for 10 minutes to dwell, we brushed it up against the edging of it like you've seen, and then we dumped it out and we left it sit for at least 24 hours till it is set. How do you know the latex is set? Because if you look into the latex itself, it's going to be a different color. The latex was like a kind of like a white creamy color, but now with it here, you can see if I just flip that a little bit there, it's more of like a yellowish color, and if you touch it, you're not getting anything on your hands. You know, I don't advise you to do this, just check, see if it's dry. Just check like the edging of it and everything, and you can see that there's nothing coming off or what have you, and you can see that it's already loose, like it's going to pull off, but we don't want to pull it out of the mold yet, because we are going to fill this with foam. Now, the foam that I'm using is only one type of foam that you can use. This is just what I have in my shop that I use a lot of, and that's the Flex Foam at 3, and it's by Smooth-On. And smoothon.com or smoothoncanada.com, you can go to the website, you can order it there too as well if you want to use this. If not, there's many other alternatives for foam. You can use the expandable foam that you use for like filling in cracks to heat it, and you can buy that in any hardware store, and the price of that is probably for each can is like about between $8 and $10 Canadian, and you can certainly do that. You just keep it, you spray it in, but you don't want to go up to the top, because remember, it does expand and you don't want it to overflow onto your mold. So, you know, maybe fill up that foam to a quarter of the height, let it sit, and if it didn't fill up enough, then put a little bit more into it. It's better to do this in intervals as opposed to just spraying it, filling it up once with one can, because it will get way too large because it is expandable foam. Same with this Flex Foam at 3. It is expandable foam, and it's just a simple part A, part B mixture by weight or volume. You can see this is it right here. So again, this is part A, and then the part B is a blue. And again, it's equal volume mixed onto it. You just want to shake it up really good, put it in, stir it up, dump it in, and then leave it sit. You can even color this foam. This foam is really good. Like I said, I use it for a lot of applications, especially when I'm building my props. But in either case, what we're going to do right now is we're just going to go and I'm going to show you about mixing up this foam. But remember, you can use any other alternative foam. You can even use Gorilla Glue, because with Gorilla Glue, you can add water to it and mix it up, and it turns to like a foam, and it does increase in volume as it gets bigger, but it's very rigid. This Flex Foam 3 is going to be very soft. So it's going to be lightweight, super durable. You can drop it on the floor and nothing will happen to it. It's the same thing as if you use like the rigid foam for insulating or filling cracks that you get from the hardware store in the cans. Very durable. Probably not as durable as the Flex Foam 3, but it's still really good. So anyhow, enough with that spiel. Let's go to, and I'll show you what I have set up for mixing it, and we'll mix up the foam. So let's take a look at what we have here. So again, it's Flex Foam at A, and Flex Foam at B, I'll show you the B in a second, but store at room temperature and shake well before using. Very important, because this is a two-part mixture, equal parts A, equal parts B. Very simple. And it says, shake parts A and B vigorously before using. Mix ratio is 1A to 2B by volume, or you can mix it by weight, which is 57.5A to 100B. But we're kind of doing this, the way that I've always done this is I just mix equal parts A, equal parts B, and I use the scale just to be as accurate as possible. So we're gonna shake them up, turn on the scale, put part A in, leave it sit for a minute, zero out the scale, put part B in until it mixes up, and then we're gonna go quickly to the mold and dump it in. Now, again, this here is going to expand probably like, I'm not exactly sure what the ratio it is, what it expands to, but it's roughly about 3 to 5, actually 3 to 25 volume. So therefore it can go up to 25 larger than what it is for when you're doing the volume. That's why I say it's good to just do it in little bits at a time. It will stick together and it's going to generate a little bit of heat. So again, just safety, gloves, obviously, mask, and safety glasses is always good to have. But if you're not going to be hanging right over the mold where you're pouring it, then the fumes that are coming up, it's not going to hit you directly in the face. So, you know, I'm not going to wear a mask because I'm not going to do that. Plus, I listened to the last video that we shot and my voice was a little muffled wearing the mask. Just be aware, I'm talking about safety wise. And just, again, read all the safety instructions and everything else before you deal with any kind of material. Another extra step that I'm going to be doing, now, this is definitely not a necessary thing, but I'm just going to color it. It's called So Strong. It's a liquid urethane colorant, and you can get this from Smooth On too as well. You don't need to color it too as well because we're going to be painting the latex, which is the skin. And the foam is just that, a little bit more rigidity to it and the flexibility. So just be aware of that. So I'm just going to start shaking up A and B really good. And then I'll be back because you don't have to see me shaking it because all I'm doing is I'm just picking up, making sure the lid is on tight and just shaking away. So I'll be back while we're going to pour. All right, it's all shook up. Now, scale, but before I turn the scale on, I'm going to put a little bit of this colorant into it. This colorant goes a long way, but again, this is not a step that you need to do. I just like to do this. And that's it. Now, a little bit of caution before we start this. The part A of the foam, when you're done with it and you put the lid back onto it, here's the lid, what happens is that it can stick to it and you're going to have a very, very difficult time 2 or 3 days later trying to open this up. So what I do is I take a little bit of Vaseline and I put it around inside the lid onto the threading and as well as onto the bottle. And that way it just ensures that I can take it on and off the next time I need it, because trust me, you want to do that if you're going to use this because it'll cause, excuse me, another hiccup. Okay, it'll cause more problems in the long run if you don't put the Vaseline onto it. So anyhow, you can see my scale here. It's kind of been gone through the war already. Turn it on. It says low battery. I may have to replace the battery. Yep, I'll be back. Got to replace the battery. Like I said, I use this a lot and I just need new batteries in, so I'll be back. Okay, batteries are changed and I put this in. Okay, it's usually the camera batteries or the mic batteries that have to be changed, but this time it's my scale. So we're going to turn this on. There we go. Just changing it to make sure it's on grams. Okay, so again, this is equal parts of A and B. So away I go. I'm going to go like 40. Actually, let's go 50. Now, yours is probably going to be different because the mold size is different, but just be aware. Now, with the canned stuff, a benefit of this is you don't have to weigh this out. With the canned stuff, you just do it. You put it into it and it's good to go. But the thing is with the can is that it is rigid foam, which is still good, you know, it expands more. Just make sure your mold is clamped down super tight because of the expansion. All right, so I'm going to go 50 with B, which is going to bring us to 100. Very quiet when I'm pouring. I have to be quiet. I'm like Steve Urkel. I'm aging myself there. Okay, come on, you can do it. There we go. And it don't have to be super exact with this. If you're over by a gram or two, no big deal, it's still gonna work. So, I'm just gonna turn off the scale. And now, you see we're mixing it. And you don't got a lot of time with this, like I said, you gotta be kind of quick to make sure that this is kind of mixed properly. You can see there. And because I put the colorant into it, when it's got one solid color, it's going to tell me that it's mixed properly. So let's quickly jump over to the mold so we can finish mixing this and pour it in. All right, over to the mold very fast. Got to pour this, mix it up really good. And you'll feel your cup getting warm. And that means that, you know, the chemical reaction is working properly. Again, you don't want to put your face right over this. If you're wearing a mask, then, you know, you're wearing a mask, but the thing is, you still shouldn't put your face right over it. So I got it mixed up where I want. It's already starting to foam a bit, you can see. So I'm going to pour it at a height. Keep going down. Just like that. And this don't take long to set at all, like good 5-10 minutes. Again, this kind of temperature reactant too as well, or environment reactant. If it's warm, it's going to expand faster, but it's still going to be relying onto the what's I going to say, the chemical reaction into it. What I'm doing here is I'm just taking the excess and just putting it into the root part, because that's going to be probably the most difficult part to put the foam in. But we don't necessarily need to put the foam into the roots, because when we brushed up the latex, it did get thick enough. So we should be okay like that. And plus, we're going to be putting it on a board, so we got really no worries for that at all. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe my hands off because I don't want to touch my camera with foam. And I'm going to cut the camera quickly and show you what it looks like where it's bubbling up. Bear with me for a second. You can see there that the foam is expanding right before our eyes, and this is no time lapse or nothing. This is really cool. So again, the fumes are channeling out this way, and sometimes the foam will build up so much and then it will collapse because it reached its highest foam part, or the highest part for the rise, and then it'll start collapsing. So we're just going to leave this sit. You can see there's a split into it already. No big deal, because we're going to be putting more foam into this as well, so that's perfectly fine. And what I usually do when I have any molds like this and I'm backing them with foam, I'll take the marker and I'll write onto the edge of the mold, and say how much grams in total that this takes for foam or for plastic resin or what have you, so that next time there's no guesswork. It's already wrote down, because again, this first pull that I'm doing is a little bit of guesswork, because you have to figure out what amount you need for it. So just be aware of that. So anyhow, we'll be back after I completely fill this up, and we leave it sit, and we're going to demold it. So, because you don't have to see me mix up more and pour it into it and leave it rise up more. It can make a long video and boring, so I'm just going to stick like that. And when this is raised up to the top, I'll show you about demolding it, which is taking it out of the mold, and it's ready for paint then. You can see it's all filled and exactly to the top, and I wrote down on the mold here, it's 165 of A, 165 of B for the grams to fill this thing up to here. Now you can see how super spongy this is, and this is all completely set. It bonded to the latex for the most part. So we're going to demold it now. Just a word of advice is that if for your first time, which you know how much it is, especially this type of mold, I kind of made like a bigger base, and the reason for it is I leveled this off by putting a board onto it, and it was leveled such as that. And then when I was pouring my last little bit in and leaving it sit, I took the bucket of latex and I sat it on top because it's super heavy and it covers the hole, and that way it's not going to overflow onto any of the mold itself. This will stick to the stone easily. So again, you see me, I Vaselined all of this exposed stone, and when this filled up, it just went to that. And this is all nice and set and spongy. So it's a matter of just demolding it now before we start the painting process. This is awesome. I'm excited for this. So I'm just going to change the camera angle for a wider one so we can do the demolding. Here we go for the demolding process. And once this here is gelled, you don't have to worry about wearing gloves or anything because nothing is going to happen to it. So I'm just unraveling the strap, popping it open, just like that, moving it out of the way. So now we're going to demold it, and the way we demold it is we're not going to grab the latex. So I'm just moving this latex around the edging just to free it up. Now you could take it if it's thick enough and just pull it out, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to open it up again, just like that. You just heard the suction release, very simple. And then we just take it out, just like that. All right, I'm gonna set this up on the table, change the camera again, and we'll take another quick look at it to see what it is before we start doing the painting. You can see it's pulled out, nice texture to it. And this is the gasket, or flashing is another name for it, but it would have only been to here, like a small little mount, but from where we added it just to prevent it from leaking if there was any kind of open gap, but there wasn't. But again, it's better to be safe than sorry, because that'll be the difference between a couple of dollars to a lot of dollars, because if your latex just spilled out, then you have to start all over again and so on. So you can see here, pretty cool. And again, like I said, the way this is now, whoops, I just hit the camera, but if I drop this, nothing's going to happen to it because it is super, super flexible. You can squeeze it. Very, very easy. And it's going to withstand the test of time. So just a couple of things that we have to do before we do painting, and we're going to just take some scissors and we're going to cut all of this flashing off, and we're going to cut the top of this off. Now, you're probably wondering, like, why didn't I sculpt just continue this up? You could have done that if you wanted to, but again, I wanted it only this high because of my shelving. I wouldn't have had any other place that I could put this, so I cut it off to here because when I'm storing it like on the side like this, and it's just going to stack up, I'd rather have them standing straight up. So that's why I kind of stopped it to here. But you could have continued with the sculpting part and all the way up to the top if you wanted to. So how are we going to treat this? Now remember, this is only so that the ATST, which is the tallest part that I'm aware of for the Star Wars Legion, will only come up to here. So this, I'm just going to cut this off. The foam is going to stay into it, and I'm going to paint the top of this black, or I'm still going to just paint it brown. We'll see. But in either case, we're just going to trim the flashing off of here and the bottom too as well. And it's pretty simple. Just a pair of scissors. And when you're going to do this, you want to pull on it a little bit. I'm going to get sharper scissors. There we go. Pull on it a bit so that, because the way I molded it, this is kind of on an indent of the tree. So you don't really have to be very careful with it and have to patch it and everything, but you can patch it with latex by just simply more latex over it. But we're not going to have to do that. We're just going to be cutting this off just like it is. Pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it and cutting the top part off too as well. So I'm just going to trim this all off, and when I'm done and I'm all finished, I will come back and I'll show you what it looks like. Now another thing you can do is, there's two ways of doing this. You can cut it in nice and tight like I'm doing, or you can take a Dremel and then just cut it as tight as you want and then go around it with the Dremel or sandpaper just to clean it up, which is kind of like a finishing process if you want to make it look all pristine. So I'm going to do that, and when I come back, I'll show you what it looks like exactly before we start our painting. You can see here that I trimmed it all off, and it's pretty much ready to do the painting. And the painting step is going to be, we're going to be using a little bit of a different method for the first part of the painting, and then after that, everything else will pretty much be very close to what you do if you're painting miniatures or other terrain. Now, one thing I want to show you is sometimes you might have, like with the scissors, I cut a little too deep. You can see that little bit. But for the tree, it works really well because it could be like a knot into the tree, which works out perfectly fine. If by chance you cut into it and it's not going to work, then all you do is you take some latex, dab it onto it, take a little bit of like cotton balls and stuff it inside to get it to be flush, then dab more latex onto it, leave it dry, and that's how you do patchwork. Very, very easy. What I suggest for if you are going to try this and you want to do it for your first time, leave probably like 1/8 of an inch of flashing left onto this, and then take either sandpaper or Dremel and then Dremel it down flat. But again, that's if you're going to try this on, or you can go ahead and just cut it tight like I did too as well. But remember is that the longer you leave the latex sit into your mold, the thicker it's going to get. So if you want it to be thicker, then you just leave it in longer. So just be aware of that too as well. And you can see the top part here. What I did is I just cut off the bulb and I put some hot glue around there. I pulled it off of the foam actually because the foam was all nice and stuck down. But I pulled it off and I put some hot glue and then I just resealed it. The reason why I did that is because over time what happens is the foam will let go of the latex. So because of this glue, and just around the edging part, the hot glue, it's going to just insist to hold it on a little bit longer. Now another thing you can do onto this is one of two things. Number one is you can like go around with your Dremel or with a knife and cut out nice little rings and make this all nice and smooth with sandpaper, because you can sand this foam and then put some latex over top of it to seal it if you want. But where this is for me, for my gaming, I'm happy with leaving it like that. But if I was going to make this for somebody, if somebody said like, hey, I want to buy some trees off of you, can you make them? Then I would probably just continue to sculpt right up to the top, or I would seal this top part completely with latex and put a little bit of like a trunk design onto it. But because it's me, I'm just leaving it like that because I'm happy with it. I'm not going to change it in any way. It's just silly. But again, if I was making it for somebody, I would make sure this is covered. And another option for that is when you're sculpting, you don't have to use a 2-liter pop bottle. You can use like cardboard tubing. There's stuffed cardboard tubing that you can get at a hardware store. It's called sauna tubing, and it's made of cardboard, but it's really thick. You can get it in different diameters, and you could, use it to be as high as you want. Use that as a base and sculpt it up and cover the top and seal it and put a design onto it too as well. So that's another option that you can have. And that's it. So again, you can see it's super bouncy. And what's really cool about this is that when I make a base for it, now I'm going to glue this down so it's going to be nice and tight to the base, and then you just flock it or sand it or what have you, and it's seamless. It'll just kind of disappear. But anyhow, I'm getting away with myself, so we're going to start with the painting part of this. So just hold on. I'm going to grab the paints and set it all up, and we're going to talk about how you paint it, and we'll just move on from there. Hope you're enjoying this so far. I think this turned out great. I'm very happy with it, and I can't wait to have this fully painted. So when we're going to paint some Star Wars Legion, it's on the table for some Endor trees. I'm probably going to make a couple more of these, to be honest, just to fill it out a bit, because you play on a 3x6 table. And I'll probably make some smaller trees too as well. I'm not going to record all of that. It's because we won't have enough days. We'd have to put like 6 or 7 videos a day, and I don't have time for that for the theme month for Star Wars Legion. So anyhow, hang on, I'll grab the paint and we'll start it off. Now we're on to the painting step. Before we do the painting step, you're probably looking at this saying like, this looks a little different. And you're right, it does look different. And the reason why it looks different is my pickiness kind of got a hold of my brain and kind of kicked me in the butt and said, you can't just leave it with the open top with the foam up here. So what I went and did, I did it off camera though, is all I did is I took some latex and I stippled it on with a sponge. Very easy, probably about 4 or 5 layers. And in between layers, what I did, I'm just reaching across camera, is I've used my heat gun to speed up the drying process of this. just to have it so it's closed in. So again, it's just my pickiness that to do this. You don't have to do it. You can keep it exactly like that if you wanted to, but I did it. And as mentioned before in one of the previous clips, that when you're doing this, you didn't have to kind of stop at that part of the 2-liter pop bottle. I did that again because of my shelf. I didn't want to get any higher, so when I store these, I'm going to store them standing straight up. You can store them laying down. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not going to hurt itself, or it's not going to get destroyed or what have you. It just, I did it so I can store them straight up. That's the only reason why I did it to there, and I just covered this over with the liquid latex. So be aware of that. Now we're going to start painting. And for the painting process, we're just going to base it out first. Now this is super flexible, so you don't want to use your traditional acrylic paint by itself. And the reason why is because this is super flexible. And if you drop it or anything else, you know, it's going to bend and flex. Or if you bump into it with something, it's going to bend and flex. So you can go ahead and paint it with acrylic paint, which is not a big deal. If you do that, then you just got to be aware that you could end up having some cracks into it over time. So we're going to alleviate that by doing something very special. What we're going to do for the special part of it, it's not really special, but anyhow, we are going to mix up paint with liquid latex. That's right, we're just going to mix up some paint with liquid latex, and then we're just going to paint it on like usual. We're going to use this cheap, inexpensive chip brush, because if you use your good paint brushes with liquid latex, you might as well just throw them out because they are going to get ruined. So just be aware of that. So you can go over after you put the first coat on, or the base coat, then you can paint acrylic paint all you want and then just seal it and, you know, call it done. So I'm going to show you first off, we're just going to use a cheap chip brush. And we are going to do color, which is, this here is an auto air color. It's meant for doing auto work or painting cars and metal and everything. It is a red brown. If I look at the back there, it says detail red brown. So let's see if we can get that up top. You don't have to use this. I just picked the color that I want because I want the trees to be like a reddish brown because it is a redwood. And I looked up some images, my reference images I did when I'm sculpting. I saved them so that I could find them afterwards and do the same thing. So we're going to mix up some latex. So I already poured some latex into a cup here. Because it's in such a small thing, you don't really need a respirator. It's up to you, because I'm not trying to smell it. But if I put my nose over it and smell, my eyes are going to start watering because of the ammonia. But I don't want that, so I'm just going to mix some paint up here. So just a little bit of latex. Here, I'm just trying to fix my table. It's a little on the wobbly side. Anyhow, give this a good shake. And just go to it. How much latex to paint should you use for a mixture? It's totally up to you, actually. Like, even just a little bit of latex would be more than enough to mix with it. And you just got to be aware that the color you get when the latex, it'll look lighter, but it always dries a little darker than what it looks with the latex mixer. So just be aware of that. So you can see there, color, it's going to dry a little darker, which is fine. I really like this reddish brown color. It's good for the tree. So I'm just mixing it up, and you can see like the thickness or viscosity of it, just like that. Now, just a quick little note here is you can actually airbrush with this mixture. You just need to add some distilled water to it until it is like a milk-like consistency, and away you go with your airbrush. But the point is if you're doing airbrush, because I do, when I'm painting my masks up and everything, is I primarily use my airbrush for painting, like probably 98%, and then just 2% I'll use a throwaway detail brush to finish it off. But the point that I'm trying to make here is if you want to airbrush it, you can. It's not going to hurt your airbrush. The only problem is because it is latex and it is air activated, that you're probably going to have to clean your airbrush a few times during the process. So just be aware of that. So anyhow, there's a paintbrush, and I'm just painting it on just like any other way. Anything else, I mean, with the paintbrush, any other way. What am I doing? What am I talking about? Word of caution, when you're doing this, it can splash around, so make sure you're wearing the proper protective gear on your eyes. You can wear a respirator or a dust mask. Totally up to you, but the point of the matter is to be very cautious and be very careful. Also too, as well, as like I said before, this stuff can get into your clothes and it will stay on your clothes. So you want to make sure that you are wearing old clothes when you're doing any of this sort of thing. And in your hair, you can get it out, but it'd be a little painful. Believe me, I know from experience. But in either case, yeah. Let's turn this around a little bit more. I should have probably stuck it on my lazy Susan, but oh well. Now, also too, as well, just to let you know, getting the hiccups again. When you're doing this and you're painting it on, you don't want to go over the same thing after the latex is starting to dry, because you'll just pull it off. So you see me, I'm working my way around, just spot here, spot there. And then I'm stopping, because this is still wet, but it's going to dry pretty quick. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to avoid putting it on twice in the same spot until it's dry. After it's dry, then you can put another layer on. And the reason why is because the latex will stick to latex, and you're looking at some problems that's going to go on. Now, I'm going to paint this, the top part, I might paint it tan color. I'm not exactly sure yet, or like the inside of a tree color. But right now, I'm just going to do it that color for now. Just one coat for there. And these brushes, again, are pretty much ruined. I've seen people putting soap detergent in with their brushes when they're dealing with latex to make it last a little longer. But these are just very inexpensive chip brushes. So you don't have to keep them and try to, you know, keep them in good shape. Just use them for what they're used for. Throw away. So paint it and throw it away. Paint it and throw it away. Just like that. Yeah, so this is going to start setting up shortly, so I have to stop doing this in a moment. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this off camera though, is I'm going to take my heat gun that I showed you, and I'm going to turn it on, and I'm just going to go over it and dry it. But when you're doing it, you want to make sure you got all plastic stuff, like other paint containers, not out of the way, because the heat will end up melting the container, and that would not be good at all. So I'm just going to dry it with the gun, the heat gun. I'll be back and I'll show you what it looks like. The first layer is done of this, and I'm only putting one layer on this, and the reason why is it is dry to the touch. But if you look at this, hopefully the light will pick it up, you can see that the yellow, or the off yellow from the latex, is kind of showing through parts of the paint itself. And I'm liking the look of this. A lot of times when I'm doing like bones or anything towards like a bone mask, I would do the same thing. I'd let the yellow latex work through it a bit. So just be aware of that. That's kind of like the color I like, but we're going to put a wash on it and everything else with just acrylic and no latex. But until we do that, I want to paint the top of this. And the colors we're going to do is, this is a tan color. You can get it at the dollar store. It's just the cheap Crafters acrylic paint. Probably about 3 parts of that. 1 part of yellow. This is bright yellow too as well. And 1 part liquid latex. And I mix it up in here. We're not going to, our big brush would not fit in there, but I don't want to do that. I'm just going to use like a makeup sponge now. I'm going to go in with it, and all we're doing is just stippling it on top, just to kind of give it that look of what it looks like after the bark is done or it's been cut into the tree. But even though you're not going to be, you don't have to do this, especially for the board that I'm making, like for the Endor, the Moon of Endor. I'm not doing this for, I'm just doing it just for look. If somebody sees that they're coming in, they're looking at the table, they're like, oh, look at this train, it's pretty cool. So that's why I'm doing this. But Otherwise, I really wouldn't worry too much about it. And if somebody wanted me to make one for them, then, and they wanted it to look like it's cut off, then I would include this part. But for now, I'm not too worried about it. This is probably going to take 2 coats to cover it up. And a stippling action, like I said, just to kind of get rid of that red part. So I'm going to use the heat gun again, put another coat onto it, then I'll be back after that's done, and we'll continue on with the paint. This part's probably going to be a little bit more messy, so you want to make sure your area is protected. But again, I'm in my workshop, so I don't care if I get this stuff around. And besides, if you see the stuff that's on this table here, the paint and latex, you can just rub onto it, and as you can see, it just lifts off. It pulls off pretty easy, but it'll stick to latex awesome, as you can tell. So again, layers all done. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to apply a wash. So this is kind of like the same wash that I use in other tutorials or Paint Like Maniac episodes, where we're using burnt umber acrylic paint, very cheap. And we are using probably like 4 or 5 drops of PVA glue, which is normal school glue. And we're also putting 2 drops of dish detergent into it, and then water. You can see the mixture is like that. I gotta stir this up because the PVA is still there. And that's it, and we're just going to go over. Now, if whatever brush you use for this, because there's no latex, you can just wash your brush out and you can keep using it. It's not gonna do any damage to it. So just be aware of that. But yeah, we're just gonna slobber this over. And again, this is going to get messy. Some nice brown texture there. We want that red to still stay there, but we also want it so that it's going to be darker into the crevices. Now, the soap detergent does that. It kind of helps the paint pool, I guess. You can make more different types of washes and everything else, and more advanced washes. I think there's a gentleman on YouTube. He's an awesome terrain builder. It's Melda Terrain Tutor. And he got so many good recipes and builds and everything. Like I found myself going to his YouTube channel a lot just to watch what he builds, because it's awesome what he does. I love all of the stuff that he actually does. It's really cool, and it inspires me to just do better at what I'm doing and just keep pushing forward. So yep, just keeping this and doing this. Now, one thing, because where we made the mold wise and everything for multiple copies, if you want it the same color and everything else, it's a good idea to write down what colors you use on a piece of paper, so that when you make them, you have enough and you can just duplicate it exactly like it is. Because I know I write them down, because I got some pretty bad memory. I got a pretty bad memory for most times. Yeah, just be aware of that. Good to write that if you're going to duplicate, so you can keep continuity the same. Or you can paint them differently. It's totally up to you. But yeah, that's it. You can see that. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to use the heat gun though and speed up the process a bit. And then we're probably just going to do the highlighting step, because in this episode, I'm not going to include like putting it on a base and everything. I'm going to leave that for, because I have something else planned for this, for another video, that it's going to be on a base and everything, and I want to keep that a surprise. It's going to be into the same month though, because I should be able to fit it in. So that's going to be it for the wash. Now we're going to leave it dry. You can use the heat gun to get it dry quicker, and then after it's dry, the next thing we're going to do is we may add another wash to it. If not, we're going to go and we're going to hit it with highlights. So I'll be back when this is dry. It's all done. The wash is all nice and dry onto it now, so you can pick it up and everything. It looks, I'm very happy with the way it looks here. I could actually leave it like this and I wouldn't have any problems with it whatsoever. It'd still look pretty good on the table, but I'm just going to add some highlight to it still regardless. And to get the highlight, what I did is I mixed up 3 different colors. I mixed up tan, I mixed up some deep red, and I also mixed up burnt umber. Now the amounts of this would probably be like 3 parts deep tan, 2 parts burnt umber, and 1 part deep red. Or no, 3 parts tan, 1 part or 2 parts burnt umber, and 1 part deep red. And I kind of got this tone, if you can see it. If the camera can get that. That's the color I went with. Now we're going to be dry brushing. Now you can paint it whatever way you want, whatever colors, it don't matter, it's up to you. And if you notice, what I said is I didn't mix up any latex with this because I'm just going to be doing dry brushing on the whole thing. I may add some more different colors, we'll see. But let's start off with the roots here. May be good to possibly use a bigger brush, but I like this brush for dry brushing, like props and everything, because it's the bristles are nice and stiff onto it. So again, I'm just going along very easily, just like that. Hope that's showing up on camera. Do a little bit more. I'm always doing the roots first. And I'm going in the opposite direction what I sculpted in. So just so you're aware of that. Yeah, I'm liking that color. It's nice, very woodsy, I should say. I'm going to finish this off with dry brush. You don't have to watch because it'll take forever to just sit there and be boring, like, oh, what is he doing? So when I'm done dry brushing, I'll be back. There you have it, Board Game Maniacs. That is the final tree done. That's all the highlights that I placed onto it. I just set up a little tiny bit of a scene here just to give you more of an idea of exactly the size of this massive redwood tree. I really like how this turned out. Again, you don't need a base for it. You can just put it on anyone if you want. But I have other plans for this tree, because if this was just going to be a standalone tree, then I would take some grass, some tufts and everything, I'd put it up like it's growing up onto it and everything else. But I'm not going to do that to this one because I have other plans for another video for that. And I hope you enjoy these builds that I included into Painting with the Maniac series, because I love building terrain. I love painting miniatures. I'm not a big fan of assembling miniatures, but I will do it. But luckily my son Brady, he likes assembling the miniatures, so he mostly assembles them and I just paint them, and that's it. So again, this tree is so soft, or not soft, it's very flexible. You don't have to worry about hitting this tree around, knocking it or anything, because it is not going to do anything to it. The last thing I want to touch upon this is sealing your paint job. So with this paint, because it has a base coat of latex mixed with the paint, the only part is just the wash and the highlight, and that will not come off. But if you do want to seal it, just like I sealed my my Halloween and my film masks or prosthetics, whatever, you can use on this latex, you can use pretty much the sealer that you use for sealing your miniatures. That's perfectly fine to use. Or you can get like a plasti dip spray if you really want to go all out and spray it down. Just make sure that it's matte instead of like glossy, unless you want glossy trees, and go right ahead. But in either case, you can seal it any way you want, but you don't have to, especially because it is based in the latex paint. It's going to stick and it's going to stay, and that's it. But it's up to you. You can seal it if you like. Hope you enjoyed this 3-part episode for building a tree for Board Game Maniacs. I really liked it. Like I said, I enjoyed this. But in more episodes to come, I'm going to include this in another build that goes along. I'm not giving it away. All I suggest is, if you haven't already, just make sure you click on the subscribe button and the bell notification icon on Board Game Maniacs on YouTube, so that when the other video comes out to what I'm going to use this tree for, you'll be notified. You'll be like, oh, that's what he's using it for. that's pretty cool, because trust me, it's going to be really, really cool to see. And when this here is going to be all scatter terrain, it's going to be really cool, because I am building more scatter terrain for Star Wars Legion by Fantasy Flight Games. This is just one of other scatter terrain that I'm building. So I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. Hope you learned a little bit. If you walked away with a little bit of knowledge, then my job was successful in trying. Again, this is kind of like an advanced tutorial. Some of the material is probably going to be the most difficult thing to find, but it is available online readily everywhere, and it may be in your hometown too as well. The only problem is if you're ordering the stone, you can get the stone. You don't have to get 50-pound bags. You can get like a 2-pound bag or whatever to cut down, because you don't need a whole lot of stone. The amount of stone is going to be determined by how big of a tree that you do make. So just be aware of that. I want to play this game right now, but I got so much more work to do for it until I'm like, okay, I'm at that point that, yep, I can start playing it now, because I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I just need things done just a specific certain way for me to do it. And that's just it. Don't forget, you can always go to Instagram, and you can also go to our Facebook page too as well to check out some stills of stuff I've been working on, as well as stuff that I finished and is completely done. So go there, go check that out too as well. And if you want to become a sponsor of Board Game Maniacs to help sponsor us so that we can build more things like trees and buildings and everything else, so that I can do so much more terrain builds onto our channel, just go to patreon.com/BoardGameManiacs, or just go to patreon.com and search up Board Game Maniacs, and you can become an official sponsor of Board Game Maniacs for $2 a month or more. It is up to you. Every little bit helps. Even watching, subscribing, hitting the bell notification, viewing, liking, sharing, all of that helps me too as well. Because again, I say this and I am 100% meaning this from the bottom of my toes to the top of my head, and my heart is just calling out to everybody. You are helping us. You are helping us so much from what you did already. And you're spending the most valuable thing, and that is your time. Your time is the most valuable and most important thing of all. No, there's no money in the world that can replace time. And that's just that. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for watching this, following along, commenting and everything else. We do appreciate every bit of it. And again, where this is year 2020, Board Game Maniacs is still evolving more and more, such as building terrain, like I said. And we're going to try to do a lot more live streaming this year, and it may be just YouTube specific, or maybe just Twitch specific, or both, or Facebook. I don't know exactly yet. I'm still working out the details for that, as well as playing some role-playing games. We may even hit up Fallout Wasteland Warfare role-playing game, because there is a theme month that is coming out for Fallout Wasteland Warfare. That is a definite given. I may expand upon that and do some role-playing with it too as well, because I got the book. I've been looking it up a bit. I'm falling in love with it. Just like I'm falling in love with this Star Wars Legion. Even though I didn't even play it yet, I'm still in love with it. I just want to play it so bad. But I'm not that point yet. That's right. But when I am, I will certainly be putting videos in this month for Star Wars Legion theme month, so that you can see me play and you can help me out with the rules and help Brady out and anybody else that I have on the channel coming and playing this. But we're not there yet, because I still have to build more terrain and scatter terrain for the table. So much stuff to do and no time to do it, but I will get it done. So until next time, Board Game Maniacs, hope you enjoyed this. Have fun playing games, have fun building stuff, terrain, games, you name it, painting, playing VR, but most importantly of all, when you're doing it, that is, be a maniac. I'll see you in the next video. See ya! Boo! Choo-choo, choo-choo, boo! Hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to keep up to date with Board Game Maniacs, click on the like and subscribe button to be notified when more videos come available. If you want to become an official sponsor of Board Game Maniacs, go to patreon.com/BoardGameManiacs. Or you can go to streamlabs.com/BoardGameManiacs1.
That's right, and you can donate to help keep the lights on, keep food in our bellies, and play more games. We'll purchase more games, more equipment to make Board Game Maniacs evolve and get bigger and larger. Because of you, the viewers, I thank you from the bottom of my toes to the top of my head for all of your support. And until next time, Board Game Maniacs, be a maniac.